Can gaming help relieve depression? By me, Brian Borquez. Now, what really made me come up with that research question was this one quote in the stimulus material. It was from Jane McGonigal, a game developer and enthusiast. If we want to solve problems like hunger, poverty, climate change, global conflict, obesity, I believe that we need to aspire to play games. So this kind of got me thinking, what sort of issues could we solve with gaming? Now, gaming and depression, while are very common, there's actually some very real importance to this. Nowadays, depression has reached much higher heights. Columbia University stated in a report that results show that depression increased significantly among persons in the United States from 2005 to 2015, from 6.3% to 7.3%. Well, that's only a 1% difference here. The amount of people actually in the United States also increased during that time, and the United States also has a large population. So even 1% can account for at least 2 million people. Depression is also connected to suicide, which is one of the major causes of death to teens. A major cause of suicide is mental illness. Very commonly, depression. People feeling suicidal are overwhelmed by painful emotions and see death as the only way out. This was stated by the University of California, Santa Cruz. Also, current treatment methods for depression aren't that great. What's important to know is that although CBT is currently the most rigorously studied approach, outcomes are mixed and effect sizes are consistently small or moderate, meaning that the usual method, CBT, doesn't really show too much promise in being able to completely cure depression, but it does work. However, I'm sure that gaming can actually help make that even better. Gaming is an efficient treatment for depression for a few main reasons. It can be more effective than traditional methods by adding to them. It's also much more openly available to people seeking help for their depression. And gaming also has a much larger room for growth. So we can always expand to make these treatments even better. Effectiveness. One of the main reasons gaming's actually effective is due to it being an opposite to depression. Altered BRS functions may be an underlying brain mechanism of the loss of pleasure and interest experienced in major depressive disorders. This was by the National Center of Biotechnology Information, meaning that depression seems to cause our reward systems to actually become less stimulated from outside things. Video games can also be played for very long periods of time. So while the games are counteracting the effects of depression, you can play them for long times, which in these longer sessions will start to counteract the effects of the depression even more than just a regular session of regular treatment. The availability of gaming is also another one of these reasons. A survey by Psychology Today found that the main reason people did not get treatment for their depression was because they couldn't afford it. And this came in at 47.7% of all the people they surveyed. Gaming is also easy access. So Maya Slavitz from Time Magazine states, it could provide access to treatment for young people who may be reluctant to have more conventional therapy. So that's just in one scenario where people are just too scared. However, there's many more scenarios in which gaming is much easier to actually get into. Gaming also has great room for growth. Each player's in-game progress adjusts the degree of difficulty and reinforcement, maintaining an optimal balance for each individual. This was also stated by Isabella Grant. So, with each decision a patient decides to make in a game, the game will automatically adjust itself for the person, so it can become even more effective treatment for a certain person. If they have a certain issue, the game can alter its settings so that if it targets that issue, it makes them even better. There's also games actually designed for the purpose of curing depression. Sparks is a game developed for the purpose of being used as treatment for depression. And this is great because it means that we can actually achieve our goals, and it has been tried. So there's evidence out there saying that gaming can be used as an effective treatment for depression. Well, some people argue that gaming actually can't be used to cure depression since it's actually been correlated to depression as one of its causes. The Bloomberg School of Public Health states most adolescents estimated to be in heavy gaming classes had more depressive symptoms than normative classes. So when they decided to set up on their research, people who they knew had been playing games more often or more than the other group, they found that those that did play actually were more depressed overall when compared. However, one of the main reasons for this correlation is actually an escapist mindset that people have when they play games. Jane McGonigal states, if you play games with an escapist mindset, you're more likely to suffer some of the negative effects that many studies have found associated with playing games, like anxiety, depression, and social isolation. Meaning that we could actually stop these negative effects from happening by just playing the games to help ourselves. Instead of playing these games to run away from our depression, if we play these games to treat it, we would actually start to negate the effects instead of making it even worse. My solution is that we should develop games that are made for treating depression. This has already been happening, such as Sparks, but one of its major implications is getting the rehabilitation centers to actually implement this. Since there's lots of evidence out there that put gaming as one of the causes of depression. A limitation is that you would need many gaming consoles and games, and then you would have to teach the people how to play the games, and that would take hours of time and lots of money to get everyone. But once it's all in, you wouldn't really have to replace much of the equipment. You would just update the game. These is my sources. Thank you.
Terrific. Couple of follow-up questions. How did you handle the different perspectives in order to come to your conclusion or solution?
So, I found a few different perspectives that were positive for gaming being used and some that were negative as a counterclaim. So, when I saw the counterclaim, I searched for perspectives that could go against this, and I managed to find one. But among my positive perspectives, there were certain ones that tried to use gaming for different things, so I had to ignore those, and then I had to use the ones that I knew I could actually use for my issue.
Perfect. And then as a follow-up question, now that you've sort of finished this idea of gaming and treating depression, did any other questions emerge either about depression or about gaming that you're interested in now as a result of this?
I wondered why, the exact reasons as to the correlation between the gaming and the depression correlation, since I mainly ignored that due to it not being, I wouldn't be able to use it. Other things that came up is that, what else, I figured gaming could help depression, But there's still many more things gaming can help with. So I'm sure if I could do more research and figure out just like to what extent gaming can help people with, because I knew of certain things also, like games made to train people for fighting, and other games made to train people for to be marksmen.
Okay. Terrific. Thanks, Brian.